So...
Activating the bomb. Bomb has been planted. Check in. All clear. Terrorists win. You will not die.
Estaré aquí toda la noche.
¡Hey! ¡Cuidado, niños!
One officer down, so I guess you're all screwed! Cause the NCPD will not let that go!
Let me live! Fuck this city!